Hey everyone, Grayson the Bard here, and welcome back to day 145 of the Hunt-A-Day. And today we are continuing the send-off of Monster Hunter Rise with fighting the big final boss of the story of Sunbreak, Gaismagorm. And something that I've really grown to appreciate in the Monster Hunter series is just how weird and otherworldly and alien the final boss monsters tend to be in the Monster Hunter series. And when I say alien, I'm not just talking about look like something that would be from another planet, but just weird and out there in terms of the general monster design. Because I feel like the base game monsters and the main monsters you fight all do a very good job of being creatures, of being animals that you could reasonably see existing in the fantasy ecosystem that Monster Hunter has created. And the final boss monsters always push that envelope and stretch it and twist it until it is something very out there, much more fantasy, much more like the kind of thing that I would come up with on the playground when I was a small child, designing, coming up with dumb fun monsters with my friends on the playground, which was 100% something that I did. We would my friends and I would sit around as kids and just talk about well, what if it was a monster that could breathe lightning, but also it was a manta ray? And then we just talk about what that monster could do and what could beat it and stuff like that, because we were all little weirdos, but it was fun. And the final boss monsters always give me that kind of vibe of Capcom being all right, we've got all of these really cool animals. Now let's make something to be afraid of. Let's make a monster. And I think Gaismagorm does a great job of showing that, not just in the creature design itself, but in the story. Gaismagorm is one of the only monsters in recent memory that I can think of where the direct response to learning about Gaismagorm from every character in the game is not, we need to study it, we need to understand it, we need to figure out what it's doing, and that just happens to involve hunting it. Or, we need to drive it off in order to preserve the ecosystem. No, their response is, this is something to be afraid of, this is a demon, this is a creature from hell that we need to obliterate and destroy. And the difference between every other monster in the series to Gaismagorm, the only other monster I can think of that has that same kind of vibe that other characters interact with in that way is Fatalis. Or I guess Alatreon, the other black dragons. And I love when Monster Hunter does that, because it takes something that is very familiar, this idea of being an agent of the guild and preserving the ecosystem, and is the best way to preserve the ecosystem is to make sure that thing is dead. Because that is not a monster, that is not an animal that should exist in this world, that is a nightmare creature from hell that deserves only death. And the build-up to Gaismagorm. I feel like I'm not going to have a whole lot of time to talk about the fight itself, because I'm going to be talking so much about just the atmosphere that Gaismagorm creates. The quest before the final boss. If you have not played Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, you should. It's a great game, for one. But also, the final quest before the final boss creates such a dense, foreboding atmosphere for what you're about to face. It is one of the single best lead-ups to the final boss that I have ever seen in a Monster Hunter game. No game has done the lead-up to the final boss better. And it also, in a way, sets up the end game grind mechanic with the anomaly monsters, but the main meat and potatoes is just the pure unsettling nature of the quest before you get in and fight Gaismagorm. Essentially, you walk through a map, and there are dead monsters strewn about the map. Not just, small monsters, but you see, big boys that you have been fighting throughout the rest of the game, just, dead and completely drained of life energy. And there is no music, there is no endemic life walking around the map, it is just pure death and destruction all around you. It's great. Then you get into the fight, and you see Gaismagorm himself, and he is a hulking colossus, and is the most demon-looking monster in the entire franchise. His mouth, when it is open, makes a pentagram. This is the biblical devil. Gaismagorm is Satan, and we are taking him down. It's great. It's awesome. And I love especially the unintentional setup for that, with, you know, the main face monsters of Sunbreak being Malzeno, Gaismagorm, and Lunagaron being Dracula, Frankenstein, and the Wolfman, respectively. I was honestly expecting the final boss of Sunbreak to be like a mummy allegory more than anything else, but like when you think about the like Western horror monsters, yeah, you got your Draculas, you got your Frankensteins, you got your Wolfmans, and then you have the devil. The weird little vestigial limbs that are coming off of his back are gross and unsettling. His giant claws that could just like take you out in an instant. I love his design. I love big monsters like this. The first phase of the fight is fun. It's, you know, it's a very slow monster. You have to like break parts off of it in order to cause it to deal damage to itself. But then phase 2 and phase 3 are where the fight really goes wild. The transition from phase 1 into the second and third phase, where you go down deeper into the pit that Gaismagorm crawled out of, and you see it calling all of the Curio to it in order to take on their energy that they've been gathering from monsters. And its like anime power-up moment is just really cool. And the run-up. Like, they spawn you at the end of the map, you run up on Gaismagorm as it is powering up and get into the mix with it just as it is finishing its big like roar and anime power-up moment. It is cinematic as hell. I said on Friday, I said it on a day, that Rise does cinematic quests the best, and I 100% stand by that. And then when you get to phase 3 and he goes like full archdemon mode, the sky gets red around you. He is like constantly like spewing this like dark red flame from his back. Oh, it's good. It's good, gang. Gaismagorm's a cool monster. And the fight itself is not much in terms of mechanics to write home about. It's a fun fight. It's a fine fight. He's predominantly a physical-based attacker with a lot of like big fiery AoEs that he'll drop down on you. But for the most part, he doesn't do anything too crazy. It's mostly the atmosphere that makes this fight amazing to me. The only complaints I really have with Gaismagorm in the fight itself, I wish the Dragonator transition from phase 1 into phase 2 was not a cutscene. I wish it was like the moment in the All-Mother Narwa fight where you got to interact with the transition and be a part of it instead of just like getting to set the controller down for a second. I also really don't like the ballista moment in phase 2 and phase 3 where he crawls up the wall and you have to pop the curio blisters on his back. It's an okay moment, but it is also like, I think, a bit too tight with the timing. Like, unless you have a full party of hunters all like aiming at the same curio blisters in succession, it's really hard to get that dude to actually fall. I think they make up for that a little bit by making the resulting super move that he does from after the wall climb very easy to avoid. You just have to like run to the other end of the arena and you're good. But I think the mechanic itself, it just kind of takes it. Whenever I do it, it takes me out of the fight, and I'm just constantly thinking like, I really hope that RNG lines up in a way that I am able to actually get the topple on this one. And I get one. Towards the end of the hunt in this video, I get one of the topples, but otherwise I don't. Not my favorite part of the fight. Definitely a weak moment that takes me out, and it's like a single black splotch on a really fun and interesting monster. I don't think it's going to come back in Wilds. One, you know, they're not going to bring a final boss monster back in the next game. That kind of takes some of the gravitas away. And I also don't think it's a monster that's going to be very likely to show up in Monster Hunter in the future, just because, one, it's a big final boss monster that has a lot of specific story elements tied into it, similar to Goron Shigaru, where I don't think that they're like monsters that should come back frequently because of how like specific story elements need to be baked into their existence. I don't think Gaismagorm is a monster that's likely to come back anytime soon. So I'm going to say like a 1 out of 10, 0 to 1 out of 10 to show up in Wilds, and like a 2 or 3 out of 10 to show up in a future Monster Hunter game. Thank you all so much for watching. That's where I'm going to wrap up the ramble for today. Like, comment, and subscribe if you want to. Don't if you don't. And until tomorrow, when I'm going to be fighting Primordial Malzeno and probably carding a lot, I'll see you next time.
excitement. What are we waiting for? You fancy yourself a photographer?
You can add this to your growing list of accomplishments.